Hello, welcome back to the Your Everyday Strength podcast. My name is Josh Sternberg, and if you are just joining me for the very first time, thank you very much for being here. If you are a return listener, again, thank you very much for being here. This is episode 5, and today's episode is going to be a little bit more of a personal journey, a little bit more of a personal reflection, and it is going to actually be discussed about a topic which has a few different perceptions, I'll say, by people. And it's something that I mentioned in episode 1. It's something that I have set as the tone to be included as a part of the whole premise behind this podcast, and that is spirituality. Now, before you clock off, zone out, don't listen, I'm not talking grab your crystals, charge them in the moon, all this woo-woo-ness of what spirituality has the potential to be seen as, especially in a social media setting, especially within different crowds and different demographics. Now, for a very, very long time, I did think that spirituality was just crystals and incense and all of that sort of stuff. But over the last few years, I have discovered how it plays a major role in performance, in peace of mind, and also in personal growth. Now, when I'm talking spirituality, I'm not talking religion or fluffy woo-woo-ness. I am quite literally just talking a deeper connection to myself, talking about staying present and talking about being aligned with your purpose or my purpose, for example. Because I am someone, and I mentioned this in episode 1, so if you listen to that, you will have known. And it was quite funny because I had a mixed review of feedback about that particular topic when I mentioned it. And half the people who mentioned it to me said, I didn't realize you're actually spiritual. I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that. Because, I mean, looking at me, I probably wouldn't fit the mold of what somebody would perceive to be somebody who's spiritual, somebody who is in that realm of being, for example. And that's because I think with a lot of things in a social media setting as well, the minority are speaking louder than the majority. Now, I know quite a lot of spiritual people, and I can promise you right now that if you basically know any form of high achiever, high performer, athletes, some of the world's biggest billionaires, millionaires, business owners, CEOs, etc., I can guarantee you that there's a few of these things that I'm going to mention today and talk about that they are all talking about, they are all doing, they have all been practicing for years upon years upon years. And I'm someone who, since a very, very young age, I have absolutely believed in there being a higher power or a higher being, but I haven't necessarily resonated with there being a God, a one specific thing, a one specific person, a one specific being. I grew up with a mother who was very much in tune with the more spiritual realm of things. You know, she was very much into angel numbers and tarot cards, and she has massive, massive angel wings on her back. If you ever go to or see photos of my childhood home, there is angels everywhere possible that you could think of. I have also been somebody who has dabbled within religion in my early teens. So a lot of people don't know, but I actually did go to church for quite a number of years. I started by going to a youth group when I was around 12. And I was going to a youth group and a church every single week for the better part of 2 to 3 years. Now, there was quite a lot of things within that realm that I enjoyed, I liked, etc. But it always kept coming back to, I felt a little bit uncomfortable about thinking there was just one particular power or one particular being that was at the helm of everything. And as I've progressed through my years, it's always been something that I've sort of come back to. It's always been something that's always been there in the background, but it's not something I've always put a really great deal of focus on. And I remember as I was sort of in my, early 20s, I absolutely dabbled within what I would believe to be spirituality and spiritual practices, and tried to dive a little bit deeper within those, more or less as a way of trying to better understand myself a little bit. Now, through my early 20s, I was a whole range of different things, to be completely honest. I think I was a little bit lost. And due to being lost, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted, where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, how I wanted things to work, etc. But I always somehow kept coming back to different sorts of spiritual practices, or people that I'd connected with would maybe influence certain aspects that would stem from a realm of what we would classify as spirituality. And with that, there's been so many different things that have brought me back to a place of being a little bit more spiritual. Now, generally speaking, it has actually stemmed from moments in time where I am struggling, whether that be with depression, anxiety, heartbreak, etc. Anytime these sort of incidents have arisen, I have found myself going back to these practices, going back to the spiritual side of things. So meditating, journaling, vision board creating, all of this sort of stuff. And it's something that I always seem to go to when I'm struggling. And then as soon as I start to feel better again, I'm kind of just like, okay, cool. I don't need this anymore. Like, oh, that's a little bit woo woo or weird or whatever the case might be. And it was only more towards the back end of last year where I'd really found I'd strayed quite far from the course of what I had previously been doing. Obviously went through a breakup and everything like that. And through that, I really wanted to start to dive deeper into myself and learn a little bit more about myself. And everything came back to spiritual practices, meditating, journaling, all of it, grounding, like being in nature, all of this sort of stuff just kept coming back up. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna go in on this because it's something that's always made me feel really good. And then I would get rid of it. And I'm like, well, why would I say this to clients all the time. If we find an exercise or if we find something that's going to help you with an injury or a setback or a mindset shift or something, and then as soon as we start to feel good, we just get rid of that thing entirely. We never use it again. And then all of a sudden the same thing keeps happening. And then we use it again and then it fixes it and we go away from it again. And I was like, why don't I just stick with this? Like, why don't I just actually continue to dive a little bit deeper? Why don't I continue to delve into this? And it was something that I had to sit with for a little bit to really get a good understanding of, because for me, I realized that the reason I would shy away from it was because of the fear of judgment of others. Now, because of the perception of what spirituality means to some people, I thought that I would be labeled in the same basket of a little bit woo-woo, a little bit crazy, for example. And it wasn't until I'd continued to read more books and listen to more podcasts and dive deeper into different aspects of it that I was like, no, I'm not fucking crazy, because some of the biggest, most successful people in this world all talk about the same things. Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, two people that I can name right off the top of my head. There is very few athletes in this world, high performing athletes, that I have heard of who haven't, whether they realize it or not, practiced some form of spiritual practice, whether that be visualization or journaling or meditating or mindfulness or anything along these lines. And it started to be like, well, if all of these people, all of these really successful, high achieving people are doing this thing, then there has to be a fair bit of validity to it. And as I said, I've been someone who has dabbled within it for the better part of basically my whole life, to be completely honest. But I've always been somebody who's, believed in angel numbers. I've always been somebody who's believed in there being a higher power. As I said, not necessarily a singular being. But I remember for the first time, I would have been around 22, maybe 23. And I remember sitting down for the first time when I was going through a bit of a rough patch and trying to practice meditation, manifestation, and visualization. And I remember sitting on the edge of my bed with my back against the wall, turned all the lights off, closed all the blinds, put on this like guided thing. And I was just sitting there and I remember just being like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what is this? And then I also remember at that moment in time, I was like, I'm going to create a vision board. I want to create a vision board. Heard of these things, heard they're really good. I'm going to go and create one. And I did. I put a whole bunch of things on this vision board that I really wanted and I really wanted to create and I really wanted to do and things like that. And I attached to that goals. So I had my vision board and I had my goals. the goals were correlated to what was on the vision board. It was more of just a visual practice for me to be able to see every day rather than having my goals just in a journal or something like that. And I remember going through that year, and slowly but surely, all of the things that I had actually put on that vision board started to come to fruition. Now, not all of them by all means, but a large majority of the things that I had on there started to come to fruition. I started to tick off a lot more of my goals, and I started becoming, building a little bit of momentum within this aspect of things. And the next year, I remember doing the same thing. I went and did my vision board, printed off all my pictures, cut them out, stuck them on, did my goals, etc. And this time I took it one step further and I did what is classified as, I guess, scripting. Now, scripting is essentially any means of practicing spirituality by writing things down. So it's one thing to manifest, which is essentially you set a desire, or you set something that you want in life, and then scripting takes that one step further because you write down what it is that you desire, or the thing that you're wanting to achieve. You then write down and list the emotions that you would feel if you had achieved it. So for me, the first three things I remember writing down was a van, a trip to Japan, and a certain amount of money. And this was the start of COVID. So this would have been 2020, this year that I did this. Uh, and I had, I put a brand new Hyundai iLoad on my vision board. And this was something that I'd really fucking wanted for a very long time. I didn't just put the van, I put in like the fit out that I wanted in it. I put pictures of Japan. I put pictures of looking out of a plane window over Japan and things like that. Now, fast forward a few months, we hit March and the world shuts down. Through this, I had still had these little notes, little post-it notes sitting around with just things I wanted on them, how I would feel if I achieved them. And I'd essentially just set it up so that it'd be a subliminal thing. So I had them just sit around my room, on my bedroom mirror, etc. And I had my vision board sitting above my computer. And so I'd see it every single day. And I didn't know how I was going to achieve this. I didn't really know how the fuck. I was like, fuck, it's cool if I get it, like blah, blah, blah. But then I remember getting through these months and suddenly COVID hits and the world shuts down. And I was a PT at that time. So I was a PT and I just started full-time uni. I'd only gone back to university because I said, if I can financially support myself, I'll go back to university and start my exercise science degree, which I did. But then the world shut down. We were 3 weeks into uni. They sent us all home and said, don't come back till further notice. The gym shut down, so my ability to earn an income had basically been wiped. And so now I was essentially a full-time uni student without a technical job. And I was like, okay, we're going to need to navigate this process. And through that, I was very fortunate. I was able to keep working through the entirety of the time. I was able to keep sort of ticking along and moving forward and started really well with the degree and everything like that. And one thing led to another, and right smack bang in the middle of COVID, when everyone was in lockdowns and the world was sort of shutting down, I managed to actually buy the van. I bought a brand new 2019 Hyundai iLoad with like 28 Ks on the clock. And I've still got the post on Instagram somewhere of me putting up the post of me standing next to the van and then putting up the post on my vision board. And I was like, holy fuck, like I've done this. I've done this. And as I said, like I may not have necessarily ticked off every single thing that was on my vision board or every single goal that I had set, but slowly but surely over time, I had then started to realize when going back and finding old vision boards or old goals books that I had ticked them off. So anyone who knows, I went to Japan last year for a 2-week trip, and that was one of my big goals from quite a few years ago. Now, the things that actually led me to going to Japan are quite funny as well. I'll dive into that a little bit more in a second, but it's just I started to see a really massive flow-on effect. And to me, it was like, okay, there's something within this. There's some sort of energy, there's some sort of connectedness that's going on here. I'm just going to continue to actually dive a bit deeper. And as I said, probably for the last like 6 to 9 months is where I would say I have sat the most within the spiritual realm. I have been consistently meditating. I have been consistently journaling. I have been reading books and listening to podcasts and watching YouTube episodes and trying to learn more and more and more about this. And the best thing about finding all of this stuff out is it's changing the dynamic, and I think it's changing the perception of what it means to be spiritual. It takes it away from the woo-woo aspect and things like that as well. Because what I've started to find is it isn't just, your hippie down the park or this chick who's charging her crystals in the moon. There is people from neuroscientists to psychiatrists to psychologists to doctors to people who, like actual scientists who are studying different aspects of things within life, within different areas, that are all slowly starting to put the pieces to the puzzle about there being something behind this. There being some sort of validity to it. There being some sort of practice. And there was a podcast that I was listening to, Lewis Howes' School of Greatness, and I can't remember the exact guest's name now, which is terrible of me. Her name was Dr. Tara something. And she was essentially talking about, she loved vision boards, but she didn't love them being called vision boards. She liked calling them action boards because within the realm of manifestation, as I was talking about before, it's one thing to sit there and say, oh, well, this is a list of things I want. Universe, bring them to me. And then all of a sudden, nothing comes, and you're like, oh, well, the universe doesn't listen, this, that, and the other. Everyone's against me, all that sort of stuff. Whereas when you think of it as an action board, and this is what I was talking about before with relation to setting my vision board, but then also setting my goals board, an action board is something that you're going to actively work towards. Now, you may not have that particular thing within your life at the moment. You may not even understand or know how you're going to achieve it. I didn't know how I was going to get my Hyundai iLoad. I just had it on the board, and I knew that I would get it at some point when the time was right. All of a sudden, the time just became right, and it happened. And then the same thing happened. I had eventually changed my goal from having the iLoad, and I wanted a Ford Ranger. Put a Ford Ranger on my vision board. One thing led to another. About 18 months later, I was going up to Brisbane for a family friend's wedding, and I was like, oh, you know what, we'll just stop in and have a quick look at some of the car yards. I don't know how, I do know how, the universe decided to be like, yep, this is where you're at. And I walked away the next morning. So this is a Friday afternoon in car yard. I don't know anyone if you've ever bought a car before, but it's never really a quick process. Generally, it's a couple of weeks. You might go in, you sell your car, you agree on the trading value, then you find the car you want, then you have to organize finance and things like that. Then you have to wait for it all to be processed. Then you have to wait for all these steps to come into play, blah, blah, blah. It takes a bit of a longer time, etc., etc. Anyways, I went in on Friday afternoon. It was about 12 or 1 o'clock. I found the car that I wanted. And I was like, no, this is the car. This is the one I want. This is it. Went in, agreed upon a value, and actually got paid more for my van than I had paid for it originally, which was a fucking win. Thank you, COVID lockdown times, because driving the car prices up through the roof for secondhand car market. And I said to the guy, I was like, look, I live on the Gold Coast. We're in Brisbane. I'm only here for tonight. I would love to get all of this wrapped up by tomorrow. And he basically just looked at me and goes, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's like, we've got to go through these different steps and processes, and we've got to do this, and we have to do this, and X, Y, Z. And I was like, okay, cool, fair enough. I was like, I mean, if we can try and get it done as quick as we can, like, if at worst case, I'd love to be able to come up next weekend, because I'm not going to be able to come up through the week. And anyways, went away that night, did everything I needed to do, got all the paperwork sorted, all that sort of jazz. Went away that night with the idea that, like, probably not going to happen, but it'd be great to be able to take the Ford Ranger home the next day. Woke up the next morning and it was like 7 a.m. Now, 7 a.m. on a Saturday. Car yards don't normally open till 9 or so. And I had a missed call, and I was like, oh, fuck, who's calling me? Called the guy back, and he's like, hey, mate, this is such and such from the car yard. Just wanted to let you know, I'm not exactly sure how, but you can actually take the car today. We've got everything sorted. You just need to come in, sign the paperwork, bring your van. You drop the van, take the keys to this. You're going home with it today. And I was just like, holy fuck. I was like, that's sick. I was like, that's fucking awesome. And he's like, yeah, I don't really know. We never really, like, the process is never this quick. We were fortunate that your bank actually got onto it really quickly with the transfer and everything like that. And we've been able to get it all sorted out for you today. And I was just like, my fucking guy. But again, it's just going to show that, like, yes, I set the vision of wanting the Ford, wanting the Hyundai iLoad, but I still had to take the actionable steps. Like, I still had to be in a position within my business, within my job, to be able to afford it, right? You can't just get a car randomly. I mean, you can probably if you win it. LMCT Plus, I'm looking at you. Please, Adrian, give me a call. Honestly, I'll pretty much take any of the prizes. But what I was going back to on that weird tangent is that Dr. Tara was essentially talking about action boards. Now, what she's saying is it is not enough to just set a desire, a want, and whatever it might be. You need to then put forth the work to be able to receive that. Now, it's not always going to come in the way in which you think it might. 9 times out of 10, you kind of have to set what you want and just trust and have belief that it is coming to you. It's coming in, it's coming to you. You need to understand that you don't control the how or the when. You just know that it's going to happen. And the more belief you can have and the more conviction you can have behind that belief, the quicker things are going to actually come to you. And there's a lot of spiritual teachers that will say the exact same thing. It's not enough to just manifest. You kind of have to set your desire or intention, understand and have trust, faith that it's going to happen, have conviction behind that faith that it's going to happen, and it happens. You don't get to control the outcome, but it does. So, as I mentioned, like, the first few practices that I had tried were just your basic things like meditation, journaling, reading certain books. I remember reading a Tony Robbins book and he briefly mentioned it. And then I remember reading a book by Brendon Burchard called High Performance Habits, and he had briefly mentioned this sort of stuff as well. And towards the back end of last year, I read a few of Joe Dispenza's books and Eckhart Tolle's books, and I'd started to watch Lewis Howes' School of Greatness, and he talks about it quite a lot. I'd started to watch or listen to Neville Goddard. If anybody knows anything to do with spiritual teachers, Neville Goddard is somebody who was around in the 50s or 60s, who was essentially talking about the power of manifestation, the power of belief, but he was somebody who essentially taught by living in the end. So it's not enough to want or desire. You have to live as if you've already achieved that. And one of his famous quotes is, "It is done." And anyone who has seen me or knows me will know that I actually now have that tattooed on my knuckles. The way in which I look at that is, you live with the belief and the conviction that no matter what you want in life, you can have. No matter what your goals, dreams, desires, etc., you can have them. Now, there is a few caveats to that in the sense that it has to be for the greater good of yourself, for the greater good of humanity. You can't want for things that are negative or that are going to negatively affect other people or hurt people or things like that, because that doesn't come with sort of a powerful enough conviction behind it. You really need to have conviction and belief that what you want to achieve or what you want is going to happen. And by saying it is done, it is almost like a finality of like, no, it's done. Like, no matter what I want to do, no matter what I want to achieve, no matter what I am striving for, it is done. It's already done, it's achieved. And through that, I've found a few other spiritual teachers as well and this one's probably a little bit more left of field for some, but Abraham Hicks, who is somebody that I actually listen to one of her morning rampages every single morning as I'm driving to the beach. And it essentially sets the tone for me for that day to always strive to be in a better, happier mood. Now, there is always going to be polarity. There is always going to be good and bad, you know, sun and the moon, yin and yang, etc. There is polarity in everything we want, abundance, scarcity. However, what we're always should be striving to do is live in a place of feeling good. The way to do that isn't necessarily by always telling yourself that you're going to be happy, because it just can't be possible. But you can live in a way that is actually going to positively affect the way you think each and every day by slightly shifting your mindset. Changing your mindset from, if things are going wrong, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of, why is this happening to me? Changing your mindset from, how can I help somebody else today, instead of how can I just help myself, to whatever the case might be. Going out of your way to try and help somebody else, I can promise you right now that that's going to carry with it a feeling of feeling good. You're going to feel invigorated. You're going to feel happy. You're going to feel almost a sense of fulfillment because you've actually been able to help somebody else. Now, you're going to be able to carry that with you for the rest of the day. If you strive to always find the lesson or the good in a situation, you're going to slowly shift your mindset from one of negativity to one of positivity. And as I said, like, you can't be positive all the time. Shit happens. Life can be hard. That jerk might cut you off in fucking traffic. You might have a shit day at work. Something might happen, but you can always try and shift that mindset to finding something positive out of it, something that is going to teach a lesson for the future, something that can prepare you better so that if that circumstance arises again, you're going to be better prepared for it. I have found for me that the more I have shifted this mindset, and I am somebody who probably for the last few years could be labeled as quite pessimistic. I was always somebody who would call myself a realist, but in reality, I was probably just being more negative than I was positive. And instead of shifting my mindset from trying to think about more positive things, I was just allowing myself to get caught up and sort of stuck in that mode of scarcity, of lack, of all of these things. And funnily enough, all that kept coming to me was scarcity, lack. I was struggling a little bit financially. I was having issues just personally, whatever the case might be. Like, there was all these different things, and I was like, But now that I've shifted my mindset, now that I have started to look a little bit deeper, now that I have started to practice certain things with relation to journaling and breathwork and meditation and all of this sort of stuff, it's almost as if, hang on a second, I'm now doing things that are going to help me calm my nervous system with breathwork and meditation. I'm now doing things that are going to be helping reduce my stress with relation to meditation and journaling. I'm doing all of these really good practices that are actually helping me to feel better every day. Now, none of these things have to be tied directly to spirituality. You can do all of these things and not care about angel numbers or tarot cards or any of that sort of stuff because it makes you feel good. Just want to put that out there. You don't have to do these things because you want to delve into becoming a psychic or something along those lines, or whatever the case might, or a tarot card reader on TikTok. I love them, by the way. But if these things are going to help you to feel good, or if these things are going to help you feel better or get through a situation or help you be more clear or more mindful or more present, it's only a good thing. It's only going to benefit you. And I think that is definitely something that I have started to shift my mindset on a lot over the last 9 months. Is I think anything that drives us to be better, happier people is a good thing. Anything that takes away stress in this day and age is a good thing. And it's not as if we're taking away stress through negative vices, alcohol, drugs, numbing the pain, numbing the problem, getting caught binge watching TV, or just eating shit food, or all these different things, because both of them are going to carry an energy with them. Now, the energy on one side of the field is negativity, binging, doing things that are not necessarily positive for us. The other side of the spectrum is things that are good for us: mindfulness, grounding, meditation, journaling, vision boards, all of this sort of stuff that has a positive effect. If it's going to shift us even 5%, 10% in a more positive, better direction, then I do not see that as being wasted. And I see that as actually being something that is fucking great for people to strive for long term. I can promise you right now that the more I've shifted my mindset from negativity and always looking for the bad in things and always trying to be angry at something, to trying to find the good in everything and trying to be more of a positive individual, or have a positive flow on effect to those around me, it has started to benefit me beyond words. It has started to take me to a realm that I did not even know existed. And it's quite funny because all of this stemmed off of the back of probably one of the worst 3 to 6 month periods of my entire life. I think I spoke about it in the first podcast. I've spoken about it before online. I basically had my entire world shift on its head. Every single aspect of my life last year towards the back end changed. Everything that I was doing changed. Everything that I was involved in changed. I almost lost myself to a degree. But through all of this spirituality side of things, I have been able to find a better version, not necessarily more complete version, but a just more well-rounded individual. And it has made me a better coach. It has made me a better business owner. It has allowed me to actually show more compassion and empathy and relatability to my clients, which has had a positive flow on effect in all aspects. My business is doing the best it's ever been. I am feeling more in alignment and filled with fulfillment than I ever have been by just doing things that I believe are right for me and following a little bit more of my gut instinct and following a little bit more of my intuition. I'm going to run through in a second. They've helped me to regulate my emotions more effectively because I am calmer, because I am less stressed, because I have taken the things out of my head and put them onto a piece of paper. I've been able to more effectively understand and communicate my emotions, how I feel, why I feel that way, and either create a plan of attack into helping myself to feel better or work through a certain situation, or celebrate how I'm feeling in certain aspects too. Because not all of this needs to stem from a place of negativity. A lot of it can stem from a place of positivity. It doesn't all need to be, I'm feeling negative, so I need to reframe to positive. It can be, I'm feeling really good. I want to feel fucking great. I want to feel fucking fantastic. I'm going to continue to do the shit that makes me feel really fucking good. And within that, it has given me more peace and presence in my daily life. It has made the smaller tasks more enjoyable. It has made the things that I'm doing every day, it has given me a little bit more purpose, to get up out of bed, to want to go and do more, to go and achieve more. A couple goals I set myself this year were to say yes to doing more things with people and catching up with a friend a fortnight. I was somebody who, again, throughout the last year had really shied away from wanting to go and do anything. I worked as a face-to-face PT and online as well, and I was like, oh, well, I deal with people a week. Why the fuck would I want to go and deal with people on a weekend? And I'm not going to go and do this, and I'm not going to go and do that. I just want to sit at home and I don't want to do anything. And it's like I'm taking myself away from connection. I'm taking myself away from positive things that can really uplift my life and my mood and have really good effects on my mental health and things like that. And so this year, one of my big goals has been to say yes to more things and go and hang out with a friend at least once a fortnight, external to the gym and everything like that. And so far, again, I've seen such a fucking positive effect from that it's something that I'm going to want to continue to do because I've started to see the results. And it's the same as training, it's the same as nutrition. First, we start off, we don't exactly know where we're going to go. We don't exactly know where we're going to be. We slowly start to work towards something. Now, it might take a couple months, it might take a fucking couple years before you really start to notice the difference. But you keep going because there's a positive aspect, there's positive effects happening. And this is no different to spirituality side of things, is that you keep going because these things feel fucking good. Now, it's also built up my self-confidence and reduced my sort of need or desire for external validation. I no longer look external to myself to find completeness. I look within myself. I'm like, if there's something that I see in somebody else and I'm like, this, it shows up in many different ways. It can be everything from jealousy to something you like a lot about another person or whatever the case might be. Or you're looking in a relationship and you're like, oh, this person needs to complete me. It's like, no, 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 this person should complement you. They don't complete you. You should complete yourself. And this person coming into your life should complement you. You should complement them. You guys should be working as a cohesive unit to the betterment of both your lives, but your own individual lives. So it's helped me to feel more confident because now I'm more content in who I am as a person, because now I'm able to actually sit down and understand who I am as a person better. I'm able to sit with who I am, what I want to be, how I want to show up. And it has allowed me to continue to work towards these goals and achievements that realistically have nothing to do with tangible real world application. It's not money, it's not a car, it's not a house, it's not any of that. It's how can I be better as a person? How can I be better as an individual? And then all of a sudden, all of these other things are coming with it. All of these really positive things are coming with it. Houses, finances, opportunities showing up, clients coming in, all of this sort of stuff is just coming as a byproduct of nothing more than just wanting to be better as an individual. And I think that's really fucking cool. And I think one of the big things that has sort of made such a difference to me within that is listening to your intuition or listening to that gut feeling within yourself. Now, every big decision I've ever made in my life that has come with fear has come with that anxious gut feeling of like, oh, this makes me so uncomfortable, that I have pushed through and just gone and done that thing has paid off in fucking dividends. From moving out of home at 17 to the Gold Coast, barely any money. I didn't have a car. I had a car, but I didn't have a license. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a house. I didn't have anything. And all I knew is that I needed to be on the Gold Coast because I wanted better for my life. Now, my dad flew up on Friday or Saturday, whatever the case might be. We drove from the Gold Coast, from Townsville on the Monday, all the way through to the Gold Coast. We got here Tuesday. Now, as I said, I was supposed to start uni on the following Monday. I got to the Gold Coast at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning or some shit. Had to go to uni open day, whatever the orientation. That's it. And I went there and I was like, okay, I know nobody. The first person I met was a guy named Taz. Now, my brother's name was Taz. I had never met another individual with the name Taz before. He ended up becoming one of my very close friends who, through him, I actually met a majority of the people that I now know on the Gold Coast through that one interaction, which is, okay, we can say coincidence, not that coincidence really exists. From there, I walked out of the orientation. I had a missed call on my phone. I called the number back and I was told, hey, mate, this is Scott from Trade Secret. I'm spoken with your boss in Townsville. Do you want to come and have a chat? We can just discuss about potentially, transferring down here. Went straight away to that. And that was all the way up in Southport. He's like, yep, sweet. Could put you on the roster starting in 2 weeks. So now all of a sudden, made a friend, got a job. Went straight from that. And there was a listing on one of the uni stage websites that was a lady with 2 kids, and she was essentially looking for a female because she also had homestay students staying with her from the local high school. And I messaged her and I just said, hey, I understand that you are looking for a female. I'm 17 years old. I have a blue card. I've coached children since I was 13 years old. I have 2 younger sisters. I get it. If you'd be willing to even just have a conversation with me, I'd love to come and meet you and see what can happen. Sure enough, she's like, you know what? Sweet, come and have a chat. Went and had a chat with her. Within about 5 minutes, she's like, you can move in. She's like, 100%, you can live here. And she's like, I trust you. I think this would be a really good house for you. And so now I had a house. So all of a sudden, I rocked up to the Gold Coast. I had no job, no house, fucking nothing. And I'd had uni sorted, house sorted, job sorted within about a 12-hour period of being here. Everything just started to align. It's almost as if I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and the universe was like, well, you're pushing yourself out, so we're going to assist you along this road. And it went bang, 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 bang. Similar thing when I wanted to become a PT and I didn't necessarily feel like I was in alignment by doing the career of real estate, everything just sort of fell into line. And I was like, okay, everything that has come good for me has come from the other side of being scared fucking shitless of the outcome. When I went on my holidays to Japan last year, I had 2 weeks solo in Japan, and this was a trip that I'd been wanting to do for a very long time. That allowed me a lot of time for reflection, allowed me a lot of time for sitting down, sitting with myself and understanding, okay, where do I want to go? What do I actually want to do? I wasn't necessarily feeling super happy in that moment in my life. There was a lot of things going on externally and I was just a little bit lost. And I remembered making the decision that I was going to leave my full-time job. And so I came back and I was like, all right, well, I need to set myself up a little bit. So I'm going to give it a few months. And if I still feel this way, then I'll go. But at least I'll be able to set myself up a little bit more financially. I'll be able to do this. I'll be able to protect myself a little bit. Again, the universe had different fucking ideas because I got back and I'd found out that one of the other coaches had left whilst I was away. And that was kind of like, okay. And there's going to be a bit of a reshuffle process and things like that going on. And I'd said to myself, I don't really feel comfortable knowing that they're going to be going through a bit of a reshuffle process and then that I would also be looking to leave within a couple of months. It's like, oh, fuck, I think I need to make the decision to leave a little bit earlier, but that scares me because I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I don't know how this is going to go. And I remember driving to the gym one afternoon to go and train, and I was going in to do deadlifts. And I had this weird gut feeling that that was going to be the day that I was going to quit. And I hadn't planned to do it that day. I had actually planned to do it 2 days later, where I could sit down properly and have a discussion and do everything officially. And I remember going to the gym and I was just like, fuck, I have this gut feeling that it's going to happen today, and I don't know how and I don't know why. And I remember walking straight in, putting my headphones in and trying to avoid communication because I was like, no, I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to train, I'm going to do this. Halfway through my deadlifts, through a point of conversation, one thing was said and then another, and then it kind of was just like, no, I am actually leaving. And we went through and had the discussion and got everything sorted. And again, similar thing, like it was almost as if by doing the fucking thing that scared the shit out of me, everything just worked. It was like almost a seamless process. It was like, okay, cool. Well, this is done now. So we're going to be going here. And this is how it's going to transpire. And this is how it's going to work. And again, similarly, it's almost as if I've gone and done the thing that scares the fuck out of me the most. The universe has been like, yep, we've got your back. Bang, let's go. And I've gone on the journey. And through that journey, it has continually led me to here. And this has come from a point of listening to my intuition. Now, people say that you have two brains. You have your actual brain and you have a brain that stems from your guts. There is a lot of people who will say this. There's a lot of scientists who will say this. There's a lot of people that say a lot of things that we actually think, feel, etc., all stem from our gut as well. So when we have this gut feeling that a situation isn't right, generally you should listen to it. If you have this weird gut feeling that like you're scared or you're nervous or you're anxious, generally there's a really fucking good reason for that, and you should listen to it. Now, I know most people will probably suppress that and they'll err on the side of caution. They'll err on the side of like, that scares me, I'm going to go away from that. And they go and find solitude in something else. The more I found I've listened to, the better things have fucking just stumbled upon. Things have started to fall in more of alignment. The more I have trusted and listened to that intuition, that gut feeling, that almost internal guidance system, the better my life has started to turn out and the better things have started to go. And this has led in so many fucking things. And this is what is stemming from me feeling more peaceful every day, more present every day. It's reduced my need for external validation. It has increased my self-confidence. I released a fucking podcast. If you had told me 12 months ago that I was going to be releasing a podcast, I would have laughed in your fucking face and been like, no, I am not. And the funniest thing about that is I actually put it up in the post when I was talking about releasing my podcast on Instagram, that years ago, probably 3-4 years ago now, I went to a psychic. Now, I went to a psychic because, as I said, I've always believed in this sort of stuff and I wanted to go and see. One of my mates went to her. She gave him some fucking crazy future perspectives, and I quite literally watched them all unfold for him over the next 12 months. And he can validate this in himself. Everything she said to him happened. And I was like, I'm going to see this lady because I want to hear what's going on. And I remember in that conversation, she was telling me, you need to go and work for yourself and you need to launch a podcast. And she kept coming back to a podcast. And I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm like, I'm happy where I am. I'm doing well. I've just started with this company. Like I want to be here. And that's not, maybe for the future. And she was like adamant to the point where at the end of the conversation, she's like, no, here is a contact for a podcast host, like studio that I know. Call him and tell him I sent you and he will look after you. It's like, she's like, you need to do this. You need to go and do a podcast. You need to go and work for yourself, go and do this stuff on your own. And I just kept being like, no. And then now fast forward, here we are. I have a fucking podcast. And it's one of those things that I'm like, what would have happened if I actually listened to her there and then? But at the same time, there's so many lessons that I have had to learn along the way of that journey that I don't necessarily think I would have been in as good of a spot to facilitate launching a podcast or working for myself or anything like that at that point in time. But through that journey has taught me more lessons, has pushed me down a different path, has shifted the way in which I'm thinking, feeling, etc. And all of a sudden, it started to be like, okay, well, now we're a little bit more in alignment, and now we're a little bit more in alignment, and now we're a little bit more in alignment. And all of a sudden, the more in alignment I'm feeling more present, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling content, I'm feeling peaceful, I am less angry, I am calmer every single day. because it's almost as if, or even when negative things happen to me now, I almost laugh half the time and I'm like, cool, so what is this trying to teach me? Or I might even, I quite literally have been more often than not, will just laugh and go, okay, sweet universe, thank you. Like, let's see. Or when positive things are happening, I'll turn around and go, thank you, universe, appreciate that. Because it's all just stemming back to the same thing, the same power and the same control. And I'm not going to dive too much deeper into any of that because I've been yapping for quite a while as it is. But I think for me, the biggest thing and the reason I wanted to do this podcast, and again, could talk about alignment and wanting to voice it out, I actually had a whole different podcast plan today. This was supposed to be a completely different topic on completely different things. And every single day this week, I've been like, oh, you need to do the podcast on spirituality. You need to do the podcast on this topic. And I was like, no, I've already got the podcast planned. I'll throw that in the next lot that I'm going to plan out, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, do it. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, I'm going to do it on this topic. I have to do it on this topic. And here we are now. So for me, it's an ever evolving journey. Now, the way in which I look at spirituality when I was in my early 20s to the way in which I look at it now is two very different things, but they still serve the same sort of purpose. And that is just feeling and living better day to day as a human being and just being a more fucking positive influence on society. Now, I've mentioned it a few times throughout this. So many fucking high performers, CEOs, elite athletes, etc., are using spiritual practices. They're creating clarity, creativity, and they're utilizing it to help with their resilience. These are the people that are the best of the best at what they do. And if they are doing this sort of stuff, and it can be on varying wavelengths of what they're diving into, then there's probably some validity to it. There's probably something that every single person can take from this. And there is not a single person that I've ever spoken to that hasn't taken some sort of positivity from journaling or meditating or breath work or doing things that scare the fuck out of them and seeing a positive effect, or doing nice things for others, or just doing things for the betterment of themselves, but also the betterment of other people. No one has ever turned around to me and been like, nah, it felt really shit to help that person. No, actually, it felt really shit to journal about how I was feeling in my head and get that out of my brain so that now I can actually focus clearly on other aspects of my life. No one said that to me. And I don't think anybody who's listening to this can ever say that that is something that has occurred to them. So I think it's something that we can look at in a different light. And instead of looking at it as the woo-woo, blah, 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 we can look at it as an embodied practice. So what we're essentially doing is it's not about believing in magic. As I said, this stuff isn't magic. It does require you to do work. You still need to do things. It's about being present. It's about being present enough to listen to your gut, question your ego. Is what you're trying to do coming from a place of ego, or is it coming from a place of your best self? And it's just about being guided by something that's bigger than your fears. So leaning into the shit that scares you, doing things that cause that little ball of anxiety in your guts that you probably know is going to have a positive outcome, and leaning into it. And you know what? If it doesn't, then there is some lesson there that it will teach you that you can take with you further into your daily life. Now you can look back at that situation and be like, at the point in time when I was within that, it fucking sucked. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I could probably say that about half of the events that occurred to me at the back end of last year. But now that I look back at them, I'm like, if none of that had happened, I would not be where I am today. If none of that had happened, I don't even want to know where I would be, because it would not be in a positive place. It would not be in a space where I feel happiness, content, present, confident. I would feel so out of alignment, and everything that happened, bad, good, indifferent, has led me to exactly where I am in this moment, has led me to be the person I am becoming, has led me to the person I have been. And I'm thankful for all of it. And as everyone who is listening to this should be, everything that you have ever done in your life, good, bad, indifferent, has all led you to the exact moment in time that you are sitting here right now, driving to work listening to this, or sitting at home listening to this, wherever you might be listening to this podcast or watching it, or whatever the case might fucking be. Everything that you have ever done in your life has led you to this moment. Everything that you will continue to do in your life is guided by you. You are the ultimate controller and master of your reality. You are the ultimate controller and master of your future. Everything that you want to do, you can achieve. You just have to put in a little bit of belief, a little bit of work, and fucking drive hard to do the things that you want, whether that be training, nutrition, personal life, relationships, fucking jobs, any aspect of it. It's all going to stem from you. You control everything. Look at any bad thing that happens as a lesson, take things from it. Look at every positive thing as a fucking guide and be like, okay, how can I feel that more? How can I be that more? How can I do this more? And dive hard on that and go hard on that and do the things that you want to do, not the things you think you need to do because it's going to make other people think of you better or whatever the case might be. Drop the ego a little bit, sit with yourself for a minute, journal, meditate, whatever the case might be. Go sit at the fucking beach like I do multiple times a week and ask yourself, what is it that I want? What is it that is going to be for the betterment of myself for the future to become the best person that I can be? So if you are skeptical, just explore it a little bit. Even if it's one of these things, even if it's a meditation or you write down how you felt every single day, or it's daily gratitude. Tell, like, what are you happy about in your life? What makes you happy? Write that down. Try and do that every day. And then all of a sudden, instead of starting the day on negativity, you're starting the day positive because you're thinking about the things that make you happy. If you are someone who wants to dive a bit deeper, then there's a few people that you can definitely listen to. As I mentioned a couple within this, Neville Goddard, Abraham Hicks, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Lewis Howes is really big. His School of Greatness podcast talks a lot about it. Someone that I've recently been listening to a little bit more who I tend to resonate with because he's so anti-woo-woo is a bloke named Nero Knowledge. And he's on YouTube, Instagram, etc. The way in which he looks at all of this stuff is so much more grounded in what would be considered as a normal person than all of the fancy woo-woo crystals, astrology stuff. So it's also more relatable. So if there's one person that I could recommend, if you're already on the journey, go fucking hard. Find a listen to and whatever you need to do to help yourself. If you're just starting, listen to someone like a Nero Knowledge, Nero Knowledge, someone like that. Or if you're someone who's in business, go and listen to Tony Robbins. He talks about it all the time. Oprah Winfrey, Eckhart Tolle, all of these big names talk about this stuff all the fucking time. Go and listen, find something that you find you resonate with, dive a little bit deeper, and I can promise you that there's only going to be things that are positive for you in the long run. Now, if this resonated with you or helped you see maybe spirituality in a new light, share it. Tag me. Share this episode around. Share it with a friend who you might think would take value from it. Fucking leave a comment. Send me a message on Instagram. If you've had a similar experience to what I have, or even if you're on the journey but at a different checkpoint, reach out. I love chatting about this stuff with people. And I think the more that we can find like-minded people who enjoy talking about this stuff openly and freely and things like that, the better things are going to be. I'm very fortunate. Kiva, my roommate, and myself, we're very similar wavelengths, and we'll sit down together and fucking we'll sit meditate together. We'll sit and watch some of these guys on YouTube or talk about certain aspects of this stuff. And it's just nice. It's nice to feel accepted or seen or heard or listened to or whatever the case might be. And if your only roadblock to you getting into and starting to maybe delve a little bit deeper into the realm of spirituality is that you feel like you're going to be judged by those around you, then one, I can promise you if you dive down this path further, then those around you's opinion is not going to matter to you long term. And two, find people who are on a similar wavelength. You can send me a fucking message. I would love to chat to you. Beyond that, I hope everybody has an absolutely fantastic day. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon.